Hi, I'm Wade Cotter with Arrowhead Sunday. I'm with Daryl from 24 Hour Sports. What is your channel name exactly?
24-hour sports with no spaces between.
Okay, all right, awesome. Daryl was kind enough to do a video with me. Now, so you do all the NFL? Okay.
Yes.
Well, I am a Chiefs only channel. I all Chiefs all the time. So that's my niche. So, what did you want to cover today?
Just talking about the offense, really. An offense that was kind of surprising a little bit. I wouldn't say it was too surprising, but just the fact that you lose Tyreek Hill and the offense just keeps on going as if nothing happened. I think that was an interesting thing that happened last year, even winning the Super Bowl. So, how can you build off that this year?
Well, I think we have what we like to call is the Patrick Mahomes effect. And Patrick can bring up receivers. He can make average receivers look good. We did pick up Kadarius Toney last. He did get injured for a few games. He was a difference maker in a lot of games that he did play in, and he, I believe, should be our number one receiver if he stays healthy.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think him and also Valdez Scantling, he did some really nice things for that receiving room. I know Juju, he went to New England, but having him, he was on the roster last year. He was also a key piece. What are your expectations for Skyy Moore, being a young receiver?
Now, Skyy Moore is kind of a touchy subject with a lot. We either love him or hate him. He had some muff punts last year that really hurt, but his production, I did a full deal on him. So, Skyy Moore for the Chiefs is a 2022 second round draft pick. Last year, he had a decent season with 22 receptions for 250 yards and one touchdown, but he only had a 66% catch rate, which is kind of annoying. He only caught one pass in all the postseason, and that was for the touchdown in the flipping Super Bowl. I think he's not going to be asked to do returns this year because we drafted Nico Mingo. We picked up as an undrafted free agent. And he was a special teams phenom in college for Fresno State, and the Chiefs they just picked him up for next to nothing. So that's where they're leaning towards. So Skyy Moore's had a whole year in the offense. So if he can pull himself up, he can have a good year. But there's a lot of competition. I kind of believe that rookie second round draft pick, Rashee Rice, he's going to give him a run for his money. Rashee Rice had 1,355 yards last year for SMU with 96 catches and 10 touchdowns. I like his receiving ability and ability to jump and go get the ball. He makes a lot of contested catches, which I really like. And I'm not the only one who likes Rashee Rice. Patrick Mahomes saw Rashee Rice's talent at Mahomes' throwing sessions in Texas, and Mahomes asked Brett Veach to go ahead and draft him. So we'll see if Rashee Rice skills transfer to the NFL. A lot of people are talking about him, and we believe he will. Skyy Moore, I think he's going to have to step up his game, or he's going to be pushed down to total pole real quick. There's a lot of competition. I like Justin Watson. I did a whole video on Arrowhead Sunday about Justin Watson, and I think he's going to blow it up this year. I really like Richie James, who we picked up from the Giants last year. He had 57 catches for 69 yards and 4 touchdowns. His 57 catches was on 70 targets for a whopping 80% catch rate. Richie James' knock was that he had some punt return fumbles last year, but he's not going to be asked to do that here. So he can just focus on catching, which he did a great job. So I'm pretty excited about this season.
But I got a question about a guy who I followed coming out of college, and I know he dealt with some injury things, but I saw him participating early on in the off season programs. Now that's Justin Ross. I was saying I think that if he gets an opportunity, showing what he can do in the preseason, and then maybe even getting a spot in the regular season, that I think he has a lot of talent along with size that can really help Mahomes.
Yeah, Justin Ross is the tallest wide receiver we have at 6'4". He's been making some highlights and some headlines. He was an undrafted free agent last year, and he was on the practice squad. He had major spinal surgery last year, but he seems to be fully recovered. So I'm positive he'll make the practice squad again. He probably is going to make the 53-man roster, and he's going to put a lot of pressure on that Skyy Moore. You better show up, or like I said, I'm not big on Skyy Moore. Some people they just bash me to death when I talk bad about the Skyy, but I'm just not big on him. I wish he'd catch the ball more. This is a make or break year for him. So if he has a great year, the sky's the limit for him. So it's all up to him. He definitely has an advantage over Justin Ross and Rashee Rice as far as being in the offense for a whole year for Andy Reid's complex offense. So I'm pretty happy that, and I do like Justin Ross. We also have a John Ross. He's a 5-year veteran, but I don't see a lot out of him. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think really with Skyy Moore, the biggest thing is that if he doesn't, come in right away when the season starts and produce, that there is guys behind him who can play at a high level. So it's really either he's going to play at a high level or he's not going to get a lot of snaps. Like that's kind of what you're saying is that if he doesn't produce, then there's guys there who can take his spot. And looking like you said, Rashee Rice, and I think even Kadarius Toney, because when he was with the New York Giants, there was a lot of things, sometimes they didn't even play him when he was fully healthy. So now having OTAs, going to come through training camp, having a full season with Andy Reid, I think as far as talent, he may be the most talented in this receiver room because, look at what he can do. He can do a lot of things, run after the catch, catching the football, catch radius, just pure speed, a lot of things that he brings to the table. So I'm excited for some of the guys in this room. And I think now, I do want to ask you a question about a different unit on the offense, and that's the offensive line. What do you think about the guys, who were lost and the guys who were brought in?
We picked up Juwan Taylor as a direct replacement for Orlando Brown. Orlando Brown wanted to be paid $1 bajillion, and he was just barely above average. So I think that we're not going to lose much. I think we've brought in some pieces to bolster that offensive line well enough that we're not going to skip a beat. Patrick's going to be a little healthier and be moved around a little more. We've still got some key pieces on that offensive line. Obviously, the center and both guards. I really do like Trey Smith. He's a really solid on the offensive line.
So talking about the receivers, usually we have three receivers on the field, one tight end. So if you had to go as based off what you know right now, who would your top 3 receivers for this team be?
Well, it's obviously Kadarius Toney's number 1. I would go with Justin Watson as number 2, and then I would go with Rashee Rice as number 3. I think that Justin Ross is still a little up in the air. He's made some highlights. We'll see. He could surpass one of these other guys. That veteran MVS, we like him, but he's only got a 50% catch rate sometimes. He did do a lot better in the playoffs, so we'll see where you can't count out a crafty veteran, but the Chiefs are really good at evaluating talent, so we'll see what they decide to do.
Yeah, I think he was really. I'm talking about Valdez-Scantling. I think he was really big in the playoff run because I broke down that the game against Cincinnati and looking at that entire game, and every time it was Mike Hilton, it was any guy that he was matched up on, he was winning those matchups. So it's kind of like with Valdez-Scantling, him being a taller receiver, being a fast receiver, he has a lot of traits. But as far as production, how you think a guy that size and speed would produce? It's like he always leaves you wanting a little bit more. So I think that's kind of frustrating for Andy Reid and Mahomes. But like you said, I like the receivers you named, and I really like Rashee Rice. I watched him coming into the draft process. I was kind of surprised that the Chiefs took him. That was kind of surprising to me, but I knew he was a good player. So that's going to really be a good fit with the team and what they want to do. I mean, I would say it's a young room. There's some veterans in there, but overall, it kind of still is a young receiving room. But I think, like you said, with Patrick Mahomes, he can elevate his receivers. That's going to be the biggest thing. How does he work with these guys, the younger guys, and just knowing him, he can make every pass. Man, he's an accurate guy also. So, even if a guy doesn't have the best catch radius, he's going to put the ball where only the receiver can get it. And I do think the sky's the limit. I don't see anything falling off a cliff because of Patrick Mahomes.
I totally agree. Justin Watson, there's a few knocks on him about dropping the ball. He had roughly, I think it was a 50% catch rate, but his number's a little skewed because he came from Tampa Bay, and I was at the game where he had 4 targets and 0 receptions against Seattle Seahawks on Christmas Eve last year. The temperature at the game was 8 degrees at kickoff. I was there. It was freezing cold. It was the coldest game I've ever been to, and I thought it was just a complete shock to him. And so that day he was horrible. 4 targets, no receptions. But the shock is over. Hey, it gets cold in Kansas City, and that's the coldest game I ever remember going to. So it's not going to be that cold in the future. He's got the shock out of his systems. He'll figure out how to maneuver his hands and work through the cold. Coming from Tampa Bay, he just wasn't prepared for that. But I really think big things out of Justin Watson, and Patrick really likes him too.
Yeah, so with the Kansas City Chiefs, I think it is kind of different. Like looking at the receiving room, looking at how they build their team in their receiving core. Do you think that, like you see some teams have a Jamar Chase, some teams have a Justin Jefferson. Do you think that with Travis Kelce, a really dominant number one outside receiver, do you think that's needed with Travis Kelce on the team?
I really do. It seems like there's a little bit too many 3-and-outs here and there, or sometimes we just don't punch it in enough. They can focus right on Travis and double team him. Well, you can't double team 2 or 3 receivers. If we have a solid number 1 and a solid number 2, like these guys, the 3 and 4 guy is just going to eat their lunch, you know? So the defense, it's going to really put the defenses at a disadvantage if we get a couple solid wide receivers. Juju Smith-Schuster was really great, and he was very sad to see him go. But if we get some people that can catch the ball, and Russie Rice, who comes down with them 50-50 balls, the sky's the limit for the team. I don't see why we wouldn't repeat. And it's so weird to say that, being a longtime Chiefs fan, and I've been a Chiefs fan. We had I was a fan when we had that 2-14 season. It's for me to. I thought I'd never see a Super Bowl, and now I saw 2. I'm like, what? You know, we had the first Super Bowl, tears. I was all, hey, my team finally did it. Then the next year we almost repeated, but we lost. And I'm like, oh, same old Chiefs. No, then we got another one last year. So the sky's the limit. As long as Patrick's healthy, we got Andy Reid. Brett Veach is doing a great job of bringing talent in and putting a lot of pressure on guys to get better. And and for the most part, they really do.
Yeah. Like another thing, talking about Andy Reid and the coaching staff. So with Eric Bieniemy going, do you think that will impact any of the offense, like as far as how it runs? Or because I know Andy Reid, he had heavy involvement with the play calling and knowing the offensive mind that he is. But we'll talk about Eric Bieniemy's impact, and will it be missed as far as win-loss record?
I don't think so. It was always a mystery what he actually did, So I'm sure it was a collaboration, just like anything. But Andy Reid had his hand in everything. So it's unfortunate that he couldn't get a head coaching job. We really like him. I always liked him. But I think that the consensus is Andy Reid's offense. And for him to go to Washington, we wish him the best of luck. He's a great coordinator for us. I don't think that Matt Nagy is going to be a backtrack, because Andy Reid's going to be right there to steer him in the right directions, because he knows what works. He's been doing it a long time. So
okay. So as far as like any guys who are under the radar at this point, as far as the receiving room, who you think will make a major impact that a lot of people aren't talking about, or is it some?
It kind of all depends on injuries, because we can go from the top 3 who we think, and then one of these other guys will come out of nowhere. Like, I don't know how much Justin Ross is going to get, but depends upon injuries. He could be our number 1 receiver. We just never know. We've got Richie James, an 80% catch rate. Like, it's going to be ridiculous if he gets going, him and Pat. I really like Cornell Powell. We drafted him in 2021. He was on the practice squad, and then last year they pulled him up to be on kickoff returns. I'm not sure how great he is, but the Chiefs have kept him around for 2 years now, so they see something in him. I actually got to meet him. Chicken and Pickle did a meet and greet event last year, and I got to meet him and Blake Bell. I thought that was pretty neat. But there's a few players that if Nico Remingo does great on the kickoff returns, punt returns, they might try him at the receiver. They always try to do that. There's talent on the team, so we'll see.
I know Cornell Powell because he played at Clemson, and that was when they were still winning national championships. So he slid down in the draft a bit, but the Chiefs picked him up, and he is a good player because I remember him, and I believe that was when Trevor Lawrence was still playing at Clemson before. I think they played together, and seeing him at the Chiefs now, so it's really just a matter of time when he gets the right opportunity. I do think he's a guy that can make some big plays because I've seen him do it at the highest level in college. So him. And, touching on John Ross is a player who ran a 4.2. It just never, whether it be injuries or drop passes or anything, it never really materialized into anything. But if you think about it, if he does begin to make plays, if he does get a role on this team, having that 4.2 speed with Patrick Mahomes, he could be a guy who's just a deep threat. He doesn't have to be a possession receiver or anything. He's just drawing defenders basically over the top of the coverage, and that's letting everybody underneath get more passes and things like that. So it really is a deep receiver room. Like I said, they are young, but it's a lot of talent. So what you said is injuries. If one guy gets hurt, the next guy can step up. It's a lot of things that I'm looking at as I look at these receivers. So who knows? Even with Valdez-Scantling, is his spot secured? I don't think that's even a guarantee with how many people are on this depth chart. So training camp is going to be really important for this position group.
And I like our chances on that first game of the season against the Lions. Now, the Lions, they were really coming on strong last year, and I don't care what anybody says. I saw that game where Jared Goff and Patrick Mahomes went. We lost. What was it, 56-53? Jared Goff is a good quarterback. What happened or why they think he's not good, but I think we're gonna go past them because we're usually better at the first couple of games than some of the other teams. But I think if we had them later in the season, they'd give us a run for our money. So, but yeah, I did not know that about John Ross, that 4.2 speed. I wonder after 5 years as a veteran if he still has that speed or not. So you think that he's, with all the injuries and that he didn't play at all last year, so I don't know if he had a major injury. I couldn't find anything. I was just assuming that he had a major injury for not playing last year.
I don't think he had dealt with a major injury last year, but I do know that, like I said, with the 4.2 speed, knowing him, because he was a high draft pick. He was a top 15 draft pick, so it's kind of crazy how his career path has gone. But like I said, he's one of the guys. If you want to revive your career, Kansas City is the right place to do it because you got the best quarterback in football throwing it to you. So that's why I say if any of these guys were to surprise us, I think they are in a good position to do it. We know that defensively, a lot of teams pay attention to Travis Kelce. Like you said, they're going to double him, of course. So what all these guys have to do is beat one-on-one coverage. Who can do
your man?
Yeah. So who can do that the most consistently? That's what it's going to come down to. And it's going to be an interesting matchup. But that pretty much wraps it up for me today.
All right. Well, thank you. Great interview. Great talk. Hopefully we can do this again.